Good morning, this is Kasturi Dey. I'm back with the question answer section of the nervous system. So, uh, in humans, according to ICSE syllabus, class 8. Okay. So, in my last video and the previous video before the last video, I told you I've given two questions. First one was like if an alcoholic person is has drunk too much, then he loses his balance. Why is it so? It is because the cerebellum is not functioning properly in that person. Okay, so because the cerebellum controls our body balance, so the cerebellum is not properly functioning due to the intoxication, and therefore what happens, he loses his balance. The last question I asked was that which hemisphere uh, which hemisphere controls the right side of the body and which hemisphere controls the left side of our body. These two hemispheres of the cerebrum. Okay, so the right side of our body is controlled by the left hemisphere of the cerebrum, and the left side of our body is controlled by the right hemisphere of the cerebrum. Okay, so I'm starting with today's question answers. So first one, draw a well-leveled diagram to explain the structure of a neuron. Okay. So see the diagram. This is the cyton is the middle one, yellow middle one with the red is the nucleus. Okay. Then it gives rise to the dendrons, which again branches to form dendrites. Then the one side of the cyton grows, one of the dendrons grows long as axon, and the axon is covered with myelin sheath. The intermediate between the myelin sheath, where it is not continuous, that portion is known as the node of Ranvier. Then the axon also, the terminals of the axon, see, they are in the muscles, present on the muscles. So this is the structure of the neuron. So let me explain. First is the structure consists of three parts: cyton, dendron and axon. Cyton is the cell body which consists of cytoplasm and has a nucleus. Dendrons are many short fibers which arise from the cell body. These dendrons further divide to form more branches called dendrites. Then dendrites receive messages from other neurons. Axon is a single long fiber which extends from the other side of the cell body, that is the cyton. Then it is covered by a fatty insulating layer called the myelin sheath, and this sheath prevents the mixing. Why it is covered? Because this sheath prevents the mixing of impulses from the adjacent nerve. There's a gap between two adjacent myelin sheath, which is known as the node of Ranvier, and this axon carries messages from the cell body from one neuron to the other. So we come to the next question. Name the different parts of the brain and state their functions. See, the brain is covered by three-layered meninges. Then in between the meninges, there is the cerebrospinal fluid. Then comes the cerebrum, the largest part of the brain. Then is the cerebellum, which is egg-shaped. Okay, and then in front is the medulla oblongata, which continues as the spinal cord. Then this is the internal view. See, the cerebrum has two hemispheres, left hemisphere and right hemisphere. There are lots of ridges and grooves in the cerebrum. There is a furrow between the left and the right hemisphere. So brain is the control center of the nervous system. It is situated in the cranium of the skull. Okay, cranium or the brain box which protects the skull. Then it is enveloped by three membranes called meninges, and the space between the meninges is filled with a fluid known as cerebrospinal fluid, which nourishes the brain and protects it from the shocks by absorbing them. Then human brain has three regions: cerebrum, cerebellum, and medulla oblongata. Cerebrum is the uppermost, largest, and the most prominent layer. It is highly convoluted in appearance with the ridges and grooves to increase the surface area to accommodate more nerve cells. Okay, so there are grooves and ridges to increase the surface area so that large number of nerve cells can be accommodated inside the cerebrum, inside the brain. It is divided into two hemispheres. The cerebrum is divided into two hemispheres, right and the left hemispheres, with a deep furrow in between. Then it controls all the voluntary movements. It is responsible for sensation of pain, temperature, touch, sight, sound, taste, and smell. It controls the mental activities like memory, intelligence, thinking, and reasoning. Then we come to the second part of the brain, that is the cerebellum, which is a small egg-shaped lobe. It is located at the base under the cerebrum, and it does not have convolutions but have many furrows. Okay, it helps in the muscle coordination and balance of the body. Okay, and if you lose this, you will be losing your balance. That's why I told you in the first, when I was starting the video, I told you that when a drunken person, intoxicating person is too much drunk, then he loses his balance, because due to there is something fault in the muscle coordination, that is cerebellum is not functioning properly. Then medulla oblongata, we come to medulla oblongata, that is the lowermost part of the brain, and it is located at the base of the skull. It is also known as the brain stem or the stem of the brain. It emerges out from the base of the brain and is continued as the spinal cord in the posterior region. Next, it controls breathing, heartbeat, coughing, sneezing, and other involuntary functions. All involuntary functions generally are controlled by the medulla oblongata. Now, we come to the next question: distinguish between motor, sensory, and mixed nerves with respect to the functions. So, motor nerve transmit impulses from the brain and the spinal cord to the muscles. Sensory nerve carry information from the outside world, such as sensation of heat, cold, and pain, to the brain and the spinal cord. And mixed nerve composed of both mixed motor and sensory nerve fibers, and therefore they transmit the messages in both direction at once. Next, we come to describe the human spinal cord along with its parts and functions. See, the spinal cord, the brain, which in the medulla oblongata continues at the spinal cord. Now, the spinal cord is protected by the vertebral column. Okay, and there are the spinal cord has spinal nerves. Okay, so if we cut a cross section of the spinal cord, we will see there is an H-shaped area, which is the gray matter around the central canal. Okay, and outside the H-shaped area is the white matter. Okay, now we come to the description. It is the continuation. I told you that the spinal cord is the continuation of the medulla oblongata of the brain. From the base of the skull, it emerges out as a cord from a hole and runs through the vertebral column. It is also protected by meninges like the brain, and there is a cerebrospinal fluid which is also present here in between the meninges like the brain. A cross-section of the spinal cord shows two similar halves which are fused together, forming a small canal in the center known as central canal. This central canal also contains the cerebrospinal fluid. It is surrounded by an H-shaped area which is known as the gray matter, which consists of the cell bodies, neuron cell bodies, that is cytons. The outer portion of the gray matter is the white matter, which consists of the nerve fibers. Now, the functions of the spinal cord are It conducts complex reflexes between below the neck. It conducts reflexes below the neck. It conducts sensory impulses from the skin and the muscles to the brain. It conducts motor responses from the brain to the muscles of the trunk and to the limbs. Okay. Now we come to the next question. What is a reflex action? Explain the reflex arc with the help of an example. See, reflex action is an automatic, spontaneous and mechanical response to a stimulus controlled by the spinal cord without the involvement of the brain. Here the brain is not involved and it is controlled by the spinal cord. Okay, so the nerve pathway of the reflex action is known as a reflex arc. Okay, it is reflex arc. This arc involves three neurons: sensory, motor and association neurons. So if we, for example, if we step on a sharp object, instantly we withdraw our foot. Why it is so? Because in this case, the pain stimulus, which triggers an impulse in the skin of the foot, which is a receptor, this impulse then travels from the muscles through the sensory neuron to the spinal cord. Okay, in the spinal cord, via this sensory neuron, it goes to the spinal cord. In the spinal cord, it passes through the association neuron to the motor neuron, and finally it reaches the muscle of the foot, which is the effector. Okay, the muscles of the foot contract, moving the foot away from the stimulus. So this is the case of this is the way the reflex arc acts. Okay, so this is the way. See, from the diagram you can see. So this is the receptor, the skin, which sends the messages and which feels the impulse, feels the sensation, and then that is carried by the sensory neuron to the spinal cord, passed on by the association neuron. Then it is passed on to the motor neuron, which travels through which the impulse travels and reaches the muscle. Okay, so this is the end of this nervous system. Okay, please go through this. If you have any doubt regarding this chapter, please let me know. Okay, write in the comment box, and if you like the video, press the like button and also share with your friends and colleagues. Okay, and if you are a new viewer to my channel and not subscribed yet, please do subscribe to get the notification of my next video. Thank you.